Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Katz, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of WeAreSC.com's Inside the Trojans Huddle, where we tell it like it is. Friends, Inside the Trojans Huddle is a game-like panel discussion, which will be posted on Tuesdays, featuring WeAreSC columnists, staff writers, and historians. We first start off with the pregame show, where we introduce our panel members for this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle, and then give you the latest USC football news. First, let's meet today's panelists. A WeAreSC columnist who writes WeAreSC.com's The Monday Morass, Yay or Nay, and Sunday Takeaways. In addition to regular season football and basketball reports, he also hosts his own podcast show entitled Locked On USC. That's Marc Kulkin. The editor-in-chief of WeAreSC.com, columnist, national recruiting guru, and a graduate of USC. That's Erik McKinney. And a former William Jewell College defensive back and WeAreSC columnist who writes the popular WeAreSC.com column Musings with Arledge, and now has his own weekly WeAreSC.com video show, Musings with Arledge Solo Edition, and is a graduate of the USC Law School. That's Chris Arledge. And finally, a weekly WeAreSC columnist who writes Fridays, The Obvious and Not So Obvious, IMHO Sunday, and is an active member of the Football Writers Association of America. Your moderator and producer of Inside the Trojans Huddle, Greg Katz. Before we kick off this Tuesday's edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle, here's a little recap of USC football news. On Monday, the Associated Press released its preseason top 25 national poll, and USC was ranked number 6 in the country. Trojans are behind number 1 Georgia, number 2 Michigan, number 3 Ohio State, number 4 Alabama, and number 5 LSU. The Trojans are currently in mock game week, which prepares the Cardinal and Gold for next week's actual game week in preparation for the 2023 season opener against the San Jose State Spartans on Saturday evening, August 26th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Game will be televised on the Pac-12 networks. And this Friday, includes a buffet barbecue day, a program that will introduce a C marching band. Evening will also include special appearances open to the public for the recruiting division of WeAreSC.com and daily during the week for our premium subscribers. And don't forget to watch each week WeAreSC.com's video recruiting roundup show with Scott Schrader and host Dylan Brazier. Friends, WeAreSC's Inside the Trojan Huddle greatly appreciates your viewer and listenership, and we strongly encourage those of you watching on sites like YouTube to click on the like and red subscriber button. It's greatly valued, free. You can also listen to Inside on most available podcast sites, and WeAreSC.com is offering unlimited access. $99 per month or $99 for a full 1-year premium subscription. You don't want to miss the site that really does tell it like it is and shoot straight with USC and college football fans. All right, we're in regular season mode. It's our mock week here at Inside the Trojans Huddle. So today's podcast, video cast, will be what you will see during the regular season. And we start off with the first quarter. Panel, we kick off the first quarter of Inside the Trojans Huddle with this. As mentioned in the opening intro of the huddle, the AP has released its preseason top 25, and the Trojans are number 6 in the country. Also in the AP top 25 are USC opponents Washington, number 10, Notre Dame, number 13, Utah, number 14, and Oregon, number 15. And as an added Pac-12 note, Oregon State was ranked number 18, which means the Pac-12 has almost half of its teams in the AP top 25, more than any other teams in the conference or conferences around the country. And by the way, UCLA was just outside the top 25. So with all that business taken care of, let's begin. Panel, what is your reaction to USC's number 6 ranking, your reaction to SC's opponents' rankings, and your overall reaction to the preseason AP top 25? As we do here on Inside the Trojans Huddle, our leadoff man, as always, Marc Kulkin. Tell us all about it. What do you think about number 6 ranking, the opponents the USC is facing, their ranking, and your overall reaction to the preseason AP top 25? It's all yours.
All right, cool. So number 6, I'm fine with it. Number 5, look, if I'm a voting member, I probably flip-flop those two. I think the voters are thinking, well, LSU has the better defense, and until USC proves it, they do. But I'm pretty confident that USC's quarterback is better than LSU's, as well as the offense. And so again, I'm probably, flipping half a dozen in one hand and 6 in the other. I'm okay with it, but just from an optics point of view, I think USC probably deserves to be ahead of LSU. And then overall, when you look at the other Pac-12 teams that are being that are ranked, that Utah one is interesting, especially considering the uncertainty of Cam Rising. Their backup quarterback right now might not be available. And I know what their schedule looks like. So, are these preseason top 25 rankings the projection of how things are going to end at the end of the season, or where things are currently today? Because I don't think Utah is going to be, ranked number, 14, by the time that USC game rolls around. Washington, I think, is okay where they're at. Notre Dame, they play Ohio State early, so that's going to, change the outlook real quickly. Other than that, as far as the preseason poll when it comes out, it's for the fans. It's cool, but you probably shouldn't rank any team till after their very first game. You actually have an idea of what they look like, what their strengths might be, what their weaknesses could be, and go from there. It is what it is. Number 6 is just fine. I don't think anybody's really complaining.
Okay, Eric, are you complaining or are you happy? Give us your thoughts on those 3 particular subjects.
You know me, I never complain.
No, never.
I think 6 is probably right. I'm actually surprised that they're not lower, because not that I would move them lower, but the USC defense of 2022 became such a national story and talking point all offseason that it would not have surprised me if AP voters and the coaches poll too. I mean, AP and coaches poll USC at number 6 in both of them. It wouldn't have shocked me had they been dropped a couple just based on that, because I don't think everybody nationally really understands yet what USC did defensively this offseason. And so I think it might take a little while for, if they play as well as kind of we think that they might be able to play on that side this year, it might take a little bit for that to kick in. So I could have seen them getting punished, but I do think being there at 6, outside of that top group that was clearly going to be the top, I think 4, that's a statement to Lincoln Riley and just how good that offense is, that you just could not drop them, even based on what they did defensively last year. You couldn't keep them out of that top 6 group, because there's just that much respect for what they can do offensively. Yeah, I think it's an easy argument to make that they could be above LSU to open the season. You're not going to put them above Alabama just because of recent track record. That jump's just not going to happen. The Ohio State thing, I think if Ohio State doesn't have a quarterback, at least CJ Stroud's not back, so there is some kind of what's going to happen there. But again, the recent track record, I understand them being there. So 6, I think, is a pretty solid ranking for what people could have done in terms of making a statement of, we don't buy this defense, we don't think that they can beat good teams there. And then looking at the rest of the Pac-12, I think UCLA is probably a quarterback that has a couple career passes away from being in the top 25 also. And it's what we knew about USC's schedule, right? They're going to play probably a bunch of teams ranked in the top 20, top 15 maybe, in succession late in the year, and those are going to be really fun matchups, I think, to get to.
All right, Chris, your thoughts on this on these 3 topics?
So I don't have a problem with number 6. I actually think there's a good chance that USC will be better than the number 16 in the country this year if the defense does what I think they'll do. I don't know about LSU. I get that LSU had a pretty good first year under Brian Kelly, and LSU is a program that always has a ton of talent, and because they play in the SEC West, they always have a ton of hype. But that LSU team was not outstanding last year, and I'll tell you right now, if they played on a neutral field, they're going to have problems stopping Caleb Williams. So I'm not sure that Michigan has the firepower, frankly, to hang with USC this year. Michigan's a good football team. They run the ball well. Last year, at least, they stopped it pretty well. I mean, up until their playoff game where they fell apart. But I don't think that's a defense that I don't think that's a team that can score 40 points against a good team. But maybe, and who knows, maybe USC will give up 40 to everybody again. But I'm fine with number 6. When it comes to the other rankings, I think Notre Dame's actually undervalued at 13. I think they're better than that. Notre Dame really struggled to start the year last year. It looked like they were going to go into a tailspin. They didn't. They pulled out of it. And that was with a lousy quarterback. You see, Notre Dame's quarterbacks last year were terrible. They go in the transfer portal and actually get a really experienced, proven guy in Sam Hartman. That Notre Dame team is going to be better. And I think they're, I look at teams like Florida State was coming in at number 7, number 8. I'd pick Notre Dame over those guys on a neutral field. I think Notre Dame's a very good football team. The other teams seem to be about right. Utah at 14. I don't know if they don't have Cam Rising, that's a problem. But they probably played well enough and consistently enough over the last few years that they deserve that ranking. Oregon at 15. Again, Oregon's going to score a lot of points. Oregon State at 18 also seems legitimate. That's a good football team. So, and I'm with Eric. I think UCLA is probably a top 25 team. Chip Kelly doesn't recruit anymore, but he does pull people out of the transfer portal. And UCLA is going to score a lot of points. They're going to give up a ton, and they're going to score a ton. They're going to be dangerous. So I could easily see them being a top 25 team late in the year, especially because their non-conference schedule is embarrassing. Like really like SEC level bad.
It's Georgia bad.
One last point on this. It's probably true as Mark says that you shouldn't have a preseason poll that matters, but it actually does matter because where you start matters, because if you start at number 6 rather than number 19, you're probably going to be the top ranked one-loss team when everybody starts losing a game. I mean, that stuff matters. Where you start has a significant impact on where you end up if you don't completely collapse Clay Helton style. So starting number 6 actually does matter. So I'll take it. That's a long-winded way of saying I'll take it, Greg. I don't know why it took me 7 minutes to say that, but
Because you're good at it.
Well, I'll take
Very,
it.
very exceptional. All right, I'm going to say that I like the SC at number 6. When in the world of fantasy in my brain, I go, okay, I like seeing, obviously Georgia would be number 1, Ohio State, Michigan, they'll face each other down the road there. All I keep thinking about LSU is, Jaden Daniels at quarterback and say, well, am I going to compare him to Caleb Williams? I don't think so. We all saw him, Daniels, I think when he was at ASU. So I like where SC is. I was a little surprised they were 6. I thought maybe some people, there was one guy that I think it's Brett McMurphy. His AP poll had SC around number 14 or 15. It was, he had, I think, even Oregon State above USC, which I'm going, how could you do that when Caleb Williams is the best player in college football and he's the quarterback? I didn't get that, but everyone has their opinion. I thought what I saw about the rankings of SC's opponents just reiterated what we already know. It's a brutal second half of schedule for USC. Any of those teams bunched up from Notre Dame is undervalued. I totally agree with Chris. I think if all the quarterbacks are healthy, you know what? It's how ironic is it that if the Pac-12 is going to go under and this is the last year of it, it should go out with a bang. The overall rankings I thought were pretty accurate the way I would have it. So, you know, when you look at it, just remember this. I think most of you already know this. There's a reason the college football playoff rankings don't come out later and I think it's a great thing for us, for the fans, and it's good. Speaking of the 5 rankings, what kind of a team will it take to beat Trojans in 2023, Mark?
It's going to take,
Hello,
hello.
Eric, are you with us?
That's you, Greg. Just let Mark answer.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's going to take a team that we saw from Georgia last year, a team that can put up a lot of points, but also has a really good defense. If you don't have that combination, you're not going to beat USC. The closest teams that, you know, legitimately beat USC last year, you have to go back to that Oregon State game. And that was a team that found a defense for whatever it was. They put it out there on the field, and it confused Lincoln Riley's offense early in the season. By the end of the year, that stuff wasn't working. Utah, which typically has the best defense in the conference, they were getting lit up by USC. What stopped USC was USC's inability to stop the other team and Caleb Williams being hurt in the conference championship game. So unless you have a roster that can put up points, and a lot of them, and you have a defense that can figure out how to stop USC's offense, I don't know if there's a team out there. It literally, we've heard John McKay talk about it way back in the day, and other coaches use the same cliche. It's not about them, it's about us. If USC does what they're supposed to do this year, I don't know if there's a team that can stay with them. Again, you saw, I went to the extreme. I went to the top. I went right to Georgia. And if you want to take a step below them, you can say Alabama would probably have a similar type of result. So I don't know. USC's ranked number 6 for a reason. Chris made some really good arguments of, you know, are the teams above them worthy? We'll find out. That's why I say, let's play one game first. Let's see what everybody looks like and then rank them. Because I agree, the rankings are important. The higher you start, the better. But let's everybody go out there and give their first campaign speech, so to speak.
Eric, what's it going to take to beat the Trojans in 2023?
I think it's going to take a home team, or at least a team playing on a neutral field. I think you need to get them away from the Coliseum. And then it becomes tough, because what we're guessing is what would it have taken to beat the 2022 Trojans, and that's be within 13 points going into the fourth quarter, and then you're good. Then you're sailing to a win. So I don't know if you need an explosive offense and score 50. What you need to be is buttoned up and take care of the ball and efficient, I think, offensively. It's going to take kind of a veteran, experienced team that will hold on to the ball and take the most advantage of every possession that they have. Defensively, you're going to need to do something to confuse or fluster Caleb Williams and throw him off his game. We saw that in maybe 3 halves, I think, last year. There were kind of some questions about would he get on track and how he started a couple games, and then by and large he turned out to be Caleb Williams in just about every game that he played last year. So yeah, I mean, it might take a team where Caleb's not on the field for that game or parts of that game. That would be obviously a worst case scenario for USC, and I think probably a few teams might be able to get him if that's the case. But yeah, it's going to be a, you know, no turnover type of team that can hold on to the ball and then do something with its coverage to kind of frustrate Caleb Williams and throw him off his game. But again, we haven't seen this USC defense. There is a significant level of confidence from the players. The coaches kind of coach speak it. They want to see it first, but the players absolutely are talking about the fourth quarters are not going to happen again. So if any team is just kind of counting on, we'll make a huge run and put up 175 yards and 16 points in the fourth quarter against this team, I think you're going to have to beat them for 4 quarters and not just in that fourth quarter. So I do think it's going to take a good team in sort of a wild atmosphere to get these guys this year.
Chris?
Yeah, I think Eric's right. It's going to take a good team. It's hard to imagine a bad team beating this USC squad. Okay, so if I want to beat USC, it seems to me there are a couple things I have to do. One is I need to keep people in front of me. I can't give up the big play. Especially because Caleb Williams will get frustrated if you're not giving the big play sometimes. So I don't want to play man defense. I don't want to play man defense because I don't think my number 4, number 5 cover guy is going to be able to play with USC's number 4, number 5 cover guy. I'm not sure my number 1 or 2 are going to be able to handle their assignments. And if you're playing man defense, that means that everybody who has a man assignment can't be looking at the quarterback. And that means that if Caleb Williams gets a crease, he can run. I'm going to play a lot of zone. I'm going to keep things in front. I'm going to try to get Caleb Williams frustrated. I want him to force some throws downfield and play behind the sticks. I want to get pressure on him, but I need the pressure to come not from blitzing. I need the pressure to come up the middle in his face. If you can bring pressure up the middle in his face, then you have a chance to make him have a difficult time, especially if you're keeping everybody in front of you in the secondary. So I think you're going to have a good defensive tackle or pair of defensive tackles. You're going to have to play smart defensively and be willing to give up 8, 10, 12-yard throws all day. I think you're going to have to be willing to do that. This is why Utah is not going to beat USC, by the way, because Utah is going to play their usual form of aggressive defense. And like they did last year, right up until the point where Caleb Williams got injured, he is going to torch them without mercy. That's not the way to beat this USC team. I think you have to play different defensively. On offense, you're going to have to score points because the type of defense I'm describing is one that's still going to give up points. You're going to give it up on 11 or 12 play drives, not 3 play drives, but USC is going to score. You're just hoping you can force a few punts per half by having a frustrated Caleb Williams throw the ball downfield into traffic, and then you're at 2nd and 10, then you get a holding penalty at 2nd and 20, and you get them off the field, right? So you're going to have to score in the high 30s. You're going to have a good defensive tackle. You're going to have to play very smart in the secondary, and you're going to have to beat USC in special teams, which may very well be possible because I don't know how much USC pays attention to special teams. So those are the things you're going to have to do. Somebody will do it at some point this year, right? Going undefeated is very difficult, especially against a schedule like this. Somebody's probably going to do it, but most teams are going to get run off the field by the middle of the second quarter. So there are only going to be a few that are going to stick around and have a chance. And finally, I think Eric's right. I think it's going to have to be a road game. I think you're looking at Notre Dame or Oregon. As good as Washington and Utah are, as dangerous as UCLA is in the rivalry game, I think beating Caleb Williams and USC in the Coliseum this year is going to be extraordinarily difficult. I think you're looking at either the Ducks or the Irish that get it done, and that makes me sick to even say. But I think those are the teams that have a chance.
Yeah, I agree. I think if SC is going to get beat, it's going to be either in South Bend or in Eugene. I think the bad news and the good news, the schedule, SC is going to have 6 games to figure it out. Hopefully everybody stays healthy during that exhibition season. So when they head to Notre Dame, they know exactly who they are and what they are. If you just take it game by game, which is what everybody preaches and what you should do, I would not go against SC in any game because I think this team is much better prepared to go into South Bend and to Eugene. They've experienced the pressure at the end of last season. They'll have it more in perspective. They'll be used to, in some ways, the attention to them. I think the only thing that would concern me is that the first game that really I think is going to be a major challenge is in South Bend. and it's going to be a real step up in class. And my hope is if they get over, I think if they get past that game, they'll be in really good shape. That's going to be a real experience for them to go there and win there. And I think they can absolutely do it. So I think you guys have given a pretty good roundup of what it's going to take to beat SC. So before we head to the second quarter, let's pay our attention to USC and college football fans. Have you found yourself caught in a frenzy of last-minute ticket hunting? The stress, the uncertainty, it's a roller coaster. It's certainly something you don't need, but guess what? There's a game-changing solution, Game Time. Let's talk perks, incredible deals on last-minute tickets, and rock-solid best price guarantee. Say goodbye to ticket anxiety and hello to the sheer joy of being in the moment. Tickets are sent straight to your phone, and here's something special for Trojan fans. Head to gametime.co. That's gametime.co, not .com. Download the app, create an account, and use Trojans to knock a sweet $20 off your first purchase. That's right, $20 off to kick off your stress-free ticket journey. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Right now, you can get tickets at Game Time for the upcoming number 6 Trojans in San Jose State at the Coliseum between the goal lines for just $25. That's right, just $25 for good viewing seats between the goal lines. Download Game Time today. I've already done it. So for the thrill of last-minute tickets and the comfort of the best price guarantee, it's a good deal. Again, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Trojans for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem Trojans for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices. With this, are in mock game weeks, an opener against San Jose, less than 2 weeks away. In the opening game, we just had practice on Monday, met with Lincoln Riley. Chris, what is your overall hearing about the offense at this point?
Well, I'm not sure that I know anything about the offense right now that I didn't know about the offense a few months ago. USC is going to have the best quarterback college football seen in a very long time. Maybe since Andrew Luck, maybe before that. He can do everything. He's experienced. He's confident. His teammates are extraordinarily confident in him. He has an offensive line that's big and experienced in front of him and probably goes at least 8 deep. And by the end of the season, may go 9 deep or so. And he can spread it around to a ton of guys who can really run. This is not a team where you have to stop 1 or 2 guys. It's a team where you have to figure out what to do about Caleb Williams, who is an unbelievable talent, who has 8 or 10 guys who can make plays, including about half of that number that can score from anywhere on the field. I mean, this is a USC group that can really run. So this offense is going to light people up. I mean, it's going to be unfair. The question marks are all on the other side of the ball. But when it comes to this offense, assuming the key guys stay healthy, we should say the key guy stays healthy, this offense is going to destroy people. There's no defense in the country that would look at it and go in and say, I think we match up pretty well with these guys. I don't think Alabama or Georgia would say that. Alabama and Georgia are good enough and they're coached well enough that you would expect them to get some stops in the game, right? They're not going to just get run over. But Kirby Smart and Nick Saban would be looking at the film and saying, we have our work cut out for us because these guys can really play. That's just the way it is on this offense. It's a great group.
Mark, you were down in practice. You know what's going on. You've had a chance to take a look at things. Where are we at this point with the offense during mock game week?
I think at this point, what everything Chris said is accurate. This team is going to be, when you've got the best quarterback in the country, you're going to be good on offense. And Lincoln Riley, he stocks the cupboards with some of the top skill players in the country. So Caleb has his toys to play with. The offensive line is going to be, an experienced offensive line. I think where they're at right now, and this is probably where they should be right now. So when they get to next week, all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. You heard Caleb talk about it after practice. He and the center need to make sure everybody's on the same page. And it's really about communication right now. Those guys know what they're doing. They want to make sure everybody who surrounds them, who surrounds Caleb and Justin, knows what they're doing as well. They don't want to be playing behind the sticks. It's the little things right now that they're working on. We saw USC's offense last year, and it was pretty good. I anticipate the second time around, it's going to taste even better. There are certain things when you serve it on the table, it tastes great the first time, but those leftovers, when everything kind of just has a chance to, all those flavors to marry, it tastes even better the second time around. It's kind of like a meatloaf. This is going to be a really good tasting sandwich this year for USC's offense.
Well, I have to admit, I don't like meatloaf. You like meatloaf, Mark?
Oh, I love meatloaf.
I hate meatloafs. I hate
I-
meatloaf, and I think I'm gonna love this offense, so I reject everything he just said.
It always gets down to meatloaf, doesn't it? Always. So that's a good transition to ask our next panelist.
Transition with meatloaf. I'm so excited for this. Here we go.
The meatloaf of Inside the Trojans Huddle, Erik McKinney. Fire away.
All right, so a couple things stand out about the offense. The overall thought is that they're going to score a ton of points and they're going to be very good. The questions, if I have to stretch and kind of come up with questions, left guard is interesting to me along that offensive line. Between likely starter, I think at this point, Emmanuel Pregna coming over from Wyoming, what does he look like sort of fitting in, mixing, matching? And then Gino Quinones is there too as an option. I think you've got depth. You like all of that. What does it actually look like in a game? This is something where week one, there's going to be some stuff, you expect some penalties, that kind of stuff. You don't want to see like the procedural, absolutely kind of remedial penalties there, but you get in space and miss a block or something like that, kind of get used to game speed. I think you're going to see maybe a couple of those things. The biggest question that I have, and it's more of like an interest than a real concern, when Jordan Addison announced his commitment to USC, you knew that's the number one guy. When Caleb Williams has to make a throw on 3rd and 13 coming out of his own end zone, he's going to find Jordan Addison. And guess what happened a bunch of times last fall? Coming out of his own end zone, 3rd and long, found Jordan Addison because he knew that guy's going to make a play. He's going to be open. I can go to him. I'm curious if there is that guy this year. You talk about how many options he does have. It's really, really hard on an important 3rd and 13 out of your own end zone to scan 5 different guys when there's a rush coming at you. To know this guy's going to make a play and I know I can go to him, that gives you that peace of mind. I'm curious if a guy in that wide receiver core jumps up as that number one, I can go to him on 95% of the plays that he's on the field because I know he's going to win a one-on-one. I know he's going to be open. I think there's guys there, right? I think Zachariah Branch could be that guy. I think Dorian Singer is an answer on any jump ball or anything where he's even remotely covered. You can still kind of find a way to him. I think Lincoln Riley has an offense that's going to get guys open all the time. There are going to be one-on-one battles that you have to win on the outside. Who's that guy? Or maybe a couple guys for USC that can do that. But the running game, I think, is going to be really good. Marshawn Lloyd and Austin Jones and whoever lines up back there. I think the running game is going to be more potent with more big plays this year as compared to last year. That's been a clear focus for them. I think that the receivers are interesting because, again, you've got 8-9 guys that you probably trust pretty well to go and make plays for you. I think you need that number one guy. This is the sort of ace up my sleeve for Caleb, where he gets that. I know I can go here, and I know he's going to come up with a big play. I think we're going to find that out probably fairly early in the season. And I do think there's going to be, the ball's going to get spread around a ton early on. That's my kind of curiosity, I guess, with the offense, because there's no concern. There's no concerns at this point, as long as Caleb Williams is like 80% healthy. I think the offense is going to be fine.
But do you like Meatloaf, Eric?
I'm agnostic on Meatloaf. If it comes out, that's fine. I'm probably not going to ask for it.
Snobs.
What about the second day though? Mark was really pumping up the second day of Meatloaf. Since Greg is going to spend all of his time frozen, let's just rip on Meatloaf until he comes back.
Well, you know what? I was just going to say, if you can hear me, apologies or listening, we are having a problem connection, and so something we're aware of, and hope it does paying attention to what we're saying. But I will say about the offense in general.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I just deleted him. Look, it's hard to do a show from a Turkish prison, which is what Greg is trying to do today. What Greg was going to say about the offense is it's going to be really good. Hey, he's back. Greg, we just went ahead and finished the show without you, man.
That's probably not a bad idea. Well, we are doing all the best we can with what we're doing here.
We're still doing a lot of lifting here for Greg.
Hey,
Eric
Greg.
told me this. We got to do something. Can you hear me?
Sometimes. My favorite part of this show so far has been your extended apology for your technical difficulties, which was riddled with technical difficulties. I thought that was fantastic.
Well, it was a teaching point.
It was heartfelt too. Can we go to the next question? Can I talk about defense? Because I think I'm first up.
I think we really should. I think we really should. It's also nice kind of.
He still wants to talk. Greg, you can't talk anymore.
Like puppet night. I thought it was like puppet night, where you just kind of move your lips and somebody else speaks for you.
I love that the stuff that comes in crystal clear just is the stuff with nothing to do with the show.
All right, we're going to try to maintain here. I would just say, and wrap up to what I was going to say, I think the offense will figure itself out. I think right now I want to know who the receivers, the backups are. We haven't heard a lot about Dorian Singer, and I think he's expected to maybe replace Jordan Addison. But let's move on. In the interest of technical difficulties, the defense. So, Chris, what do you think the defense jumps out to you at this point on defense from your understanding?
The thing that jumps out to me about the defense is the optimism. The optimism from the coaching staff, from the players, from the fans, from this panel. I mean, it's been so long since USC played even halfway decent defense that it seems a little bit crazy that you would have this many people who look at it and say, I actually think this is going to be a good group. And that is my position. I think this is going to be a good group. I think these guys will make plays. I think they will cause problems. Part of that is the optimism of the offseason. I mean, currently there are probably UCLA fans saying, I think we're going to pull in 30 or 40,000 a home game, which is wildly optimistic. But in the offseason, you can say that sort of thing and believe it. And so part of it is the offseason optimism. Part of it is that USC is just so much more talented this year defensively than they've been. If you have the four key defensive line transfers healthy and playing, it's just hard to imagine that's not going to be a really good group. And if they're good there, you would expect that Mason Cobb is going to be able to play really well. He's played well in the past. Tackett Curtis appears to be not only old for a freshman, but actually way above the curve for a freshman. That kid can play. Eric Gentry can play. The secondary looks like it's going to be good. I mean, so that's what jumps out at me. We may all be 2 months from now, we may just get a string of comments from people on YouTube talking about how ridiculous we were pumping up this defense. But I think it's going to be a good group. I think it could be a top 3 or 4 defense in the conference. And if it is, USC is going to be very, very difficult to beat.
You buy into that, Mark?
Yeah, I totally buy into it. There is a quiet confidence among this group right now. And, you can listen to the coaches talk, and we can listen to the players, do their thing after practice and talk. But there is a quiet confidence going on among the group, whether they're playing with that chip on their shoulder because they feel responsible for how the season ended last year, whatever the case may be, it's there. And, I know this defense is going to be pretty good because I read Erik's practice report yesterday. And when he ends something with, my goodness, I mean, that was pretty excitable for him. That I literally envisioned him jumping up with a high five because the Padres just beat the Dodgers. I mean, he rattled off the depth, and that's where he was going with this. Is USC's defense this year, they can sustain an injury or two on the defensive line and still have enough players there to do what needs to be done. And they're getting healthier at linebacker. So when you have Superman playing quarterback and apparently a young Captain America who's going to be taking over the linebacker unit, the secondary is going to be just fine with Kalen Bullock leading the charge. So a quiet confidence. It's deeper. They brought in better players. That's the takeaway going into the season. And they've got at least 5 games to work out any kinks before the season really starts to get serious.
Erik, buying into what Mark is saying?
I think that they're going to be pretty good. Now, I think it's important to keep in mind that offenses score points in college football. Like this is not a defense that's going to shut teams out and give up 3 points and hold everybody under 10 points. Like the teams are going to move the ball. Teams are going to score points. There's going to be a dumb penalty, right? Just because that happens. Like this is not going to be a buttoned up #1 defense in the country. They're still a little bit away from that. But I did refer to this on the message board as the ship of Theseus defense, because you hear so much all offseason. How much, right? Sorry, it's not
ship of what?
It's the third day meatloaf defense. So what's going on? You hear so much in the offseason from people about how much better can one defense get in one offseason. And it's like, well, if you replace each individual piece throughout the entire offseason, is that the same defense or is that a completely new defense? So trying to guess, well, they did this last year, and so now they're going to do this year. They've replaced so much. They've added so much to it. It does not look like what USC took the field with last year. Looking at the defensive line group going through drills, and it's 3 deep with guys who would have been starters last year. I mean, guys who needed to play huge minutes last year are going to be kind of subbed in and out and moving around and stuff. And so when you add that much talent and that much depth, really, I mean, USC was destroyed in the fourth quarter of games last year. I mean, just teams running up and down the field. Without that Corey Foreman interception against UCLA, I mean, it's even more drastic, kind of what teams did late in the year in the fourth quarter against USC. I think they can get that buttoned up to where you have guys that are still fairly fresh coming in the fourth quarter on that defensive front, where you can affect games and get it done and finish games out on defense. We're gonna, like Chris said, we're gonna see what it looks like. And I don't think that San Jose State and Nevada tell you the whole story, but the last decade, how USC has played early in the year against teams that it should run off the field, it's told you a lot about what that team ends up looking like defensively. So I think they can make a pretty significant statement early in the year against a couple of those teams. But you look at guys they didn't have last year. Zion Branch is making headlines this fall. Damani Jackson is doing really well. Those are 2 guys that they did not have last year. They're two of their best 2022 signees. Eric Gentry, USC's undefeated when Eric Gentry is fully healthy and on the field. I mean, there were guys added to this roster who were on the team last year who just weren't able to contribute at 100% all the way through. And when some of those guys were off the field, Lincoln Riley talked a lot about bringing the floor up, right? You want to take the ceiling up, you want to take your top end talent up, but when that starter comes off the field, what is that drop like to the guy that's below him, and then the drop to the guy below him? And that's really where the improvement on the defensive side, I think, has come in this year, where you can really go 2-3 deep because you have to. I mean, you can't roll your starters out there for every single snap for a season. So I think that's where a lot of the improvement has come from. And that's especially obvious in that front six, that defensive front for USC. They can do a lot up there. And you hear the players, you can tell just kind of in the attitude guys have and how excited they get to talk about other players. Anthony Lucas is not a guy that USC has had on the roster the past few years. Bear Alexander, the way players talk about kind of how he affects things and his athleticism and explosiveness. They're just not guys that USC has had a lot of. There's been a Drake Jackson and a Thule that have come through, but when you can line 3-4 of those guys up in the front, and you've got guys like that in the second level and the third level in the secondary, then the defense really starts to change.
You're muted,
Almost
Greg.
had it, Greg.
First take over here.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
That's a good sign, I suppose, or a bad sign.
we'll see.
I want to see, I wrote an article about this. I want to see them prove it on the field. I know that the reports are all glorious. I am concerned about the corners. I want to see if the transfers have motors that can play each game for 12 games during the regular season. I think that it's pretty apparent that Tackett Curtis is a stud. I wonder how much he's going to be, how long it's going to take for him to start at some point for somebody. I think he's that good. It'd be very interesting to see how they rotate him, but it should be interesting all around. Again, we are having technical difficulties, as you are aware of. We apologize for that. We'll try to keep moving on here. So don't throw meatloaf at any of us if you get really annoyed at this, because we're fully understandable about what it's like to struggle through this at this point in time. After all, it's still mock game week, so we get the kinks out this week when we really started in. Let's move on here. Panel, we're going to do what they call halftime predictions. Usually we're going to have a sponsor next week. This will make sense, but scores the show, we're going to insert that during halftime.
It's a little bit like Clay Helton, when there's been a penalty call that he doesn't understand right there. You were temporarily frozen with your mouth open, Greg. It brought back ugly memories of a prior head coach.
Well, I actually tour the country doing that, impressions of Gentleman Clay, but that's here nor there. So anyway, generally speaking, at halftime this season, because we do have a new sponsor, second sponsor coming on board, we'll be doing predictions of games, relevant ranked teams in the Pac-12 and selected national games. But at this point, we're going to use halftime to transition to predicting scores, not necessarily because there are no games this week, but we are going to move to the Big Ten next season in 2024. So we're going to play a little game here called the Big Ten Yes or No. I've revised some of the questions to make it a little easier for our panel. So just answer, guys, yes or no. No statements are really needed. So we're going to go with question one. We're going to go in this order: Eric, Chris, Mark, and myself. Again, Eric, Chris, Mark, and myself. So number one, yes or no? Trojans offense will average 40 points or more per game in 2023. Eric?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
That's it. Great job, guys.
That's a wrap.
Question 2, yes, the Trojans defense will allow an average. Yeah, that's a wrap. Yes or no, the Trojans defense will allow an average of less than 24 points per game in 2023. Eric?
No, 24.1.
All right.
He made a comment. He wasn't supposed to. You said just yes, just no.
Okay.
No.
How would you
We'll edit that
like
out.
to have?
Don't worry about it. We'll edit it out. Greg, don't talk. It's not helping.
Yeah.
I'm
That's the
trying to
one
get
thing.
through
That's
this,
the
and you
one
guys
thing
are
we need to
making-
edit out of the show is my comment at the end.
You're making it difficult.
Don't make it difficult.
You're making it. This is like watching USC struggle under Helton. I wish you would stop. Okay. All kidding aside. Chris, did you tell us is SC going to average less than 24 points per game defensively? Are they going to allow an average of 24 or less points per game? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Mark?
Yes.
I'll say no.
Comment
Question
or Chris
3.
will yell at you.
I'm not saying anything. Jeez.
You've been saying stuff all
question-
day. We just can't understand any of it.
Question 3, yes or no? Private parking lots across the Coliseum this season will be charging $85 or more per car. Eric?
Sure. I mean, I don't know what the going rate is. Sure.
Okay, that's a cop out. Chris?
On average or every single game? I don't understand the question.
Well, I'm not surprised. It has to be elaborate with you. Private parking lots, Chris, across from the Coliseum this season will be charging $85 or more per car.
For the big games, yes. For the small games, no.
Okay, we didn't ask for a comment, but then you had to insert one. Mark?
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. All right, quick answers. Question 4. Yes or no? Caleb Williams will throw at least 5 touchdown passes in 3 or more games in 2023. Eric?
Yeah.
Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Definitely.
I agree. Yes. All right. Question 5. Yes or no? True freshman wide receiver Zachariah Branch will score at least 7 touchdown receptions in 2023. Eric?
No.
Chris?
No.
Mark?
Yes.
I say no. Question 6. Yes or no? The high temperatures at kickoff for both San Jose State and Nevada will be at least 85 degrees or higher. Eric?
Sure.
Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
I agree. Yes. Question 7. Yes or no? The Trojans will have some slight alterations or additions to the uniform at some point in 2023. Eric?
Am I going to get yelled at if I add a comment to
Eric,
this?
it's yes or no, Eric. We didn't call for a dissertation.
If the alteration is like the yellow tights that some of the guys started wearing last year, then I'd call that an alteration. Someone's coming up with something like that. But an official change to the uniform, no, doubtful.
Okay, Chris?
That's the one he couldn't help but break the rules over. That question?
I hear you.
Okay. No.
Shameful.
People get touchy about their uniform discussions.
So Eric's yes on the yellow tights. I'm going no.
Mark?
I'm gonna say yes, no black. Let's just get that out of the way.
I'm going to say at some point, yes. Question 8. Yes or no? USC players will all be wearing the same colored football shoes and matching socks throughout the 2023 season. Eric?
No, the yellow tights were last year. Gotta up that game. Tie-dye maybe this year. We'll see something.
Okay, there he goes again. I'm trying to get through this, yes or no. All right. Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
No.
All right.
He was waiting for you to add comments, Mark. He loves when you add comments to this.
I don't want to make okay. I'm going to say they will not all be wearing the same colored shoes and matching socks.
No,
Okay.
Greg.
All right. Question number 9. Yes or no? Backup quarterback Miller Moss will throw over 8 touchdown passes in 2023?
No,
Eric,
no.
Chris,
No way.
Mark.
Yes.
All right.
Mark's got him with 45 touchdown passes this year.
I have him playing a lot in the first 2 games.
Well, I think it's possible, but I'm going to say, I'm going to go yes. And last question, guys. Yes or no, San Jose State will bring at least 10,000 fans to the game on Saturday, August 26th. Eric,
No, that seems like a lot.
Chris,
I'm gonna comment on this one. Their home attendance averages between 15 and 17. I don't think they're gonna bring 10,000 to the Coliseum.
Mark,
Next.
I say no. All
Do you
right.
think they'll outdraw UCLA this year, though? If they average 16,000 at home, do you think that's more than UCLA will average?
That's
Yes
the
or no?
question.
Yes or no? No comments. Okay, nobody's gonna answer that one. We'll just move on. Greg, don't worry about it. We're just gonna move on.
Friends, before we move on to the second half of topics here on the Huddle, again, a reminder, we encourage those of you watching inside the Trojans Huddle on sites like YouTube to click the like and red subscriber buttons. Is greatly valued, appreciated, and it's free. And a reminder, you can also listen to Inside the Trojans Huddle on many available podcast sites. Be sure to check out WeAreSC.com and become a premium subscriber. So with that, let's get to the third quarter recruiting panel. We kick off the third quarter of Inside the Trojans Huddle with this.
Can't wait.
Great July recruiting month. From this point on, however,
Meatloaf sounds really good right now, guys. I'm
expect
sorry.
regarding the 2020.
So, guys, what do you think? What do you think USC's recruiting class will do the rest of the 2024 year? Mark, go ahead.
That's a great question, Chris.
I think it's an outstanding question. So I think what's going to happen is we are at the point now where the top uncommitted players that USC is after are going to go into their wait and see mode. There's a couple of guys that are getting ready to make a commitment. One is linebacker Chris Cole. Another is Jalen Harvey, the rush end from out there in Maryland. So those are 2 guys that USC are hot and heavy after. But I think for the balance, everybody's going to say, all right, let's see what that USC defense looks like. And then you might see that mad rush again, like you saw in June, sometime during the season. I don't know if anything's going to happen outside of maybe getting 2 commitments between now and the end of September. I think everybody should probably just kind of focus on the season, because I think that's what the recruits are doing right now. They've got their own high school seasons to focus on, as well as, putting that USC defense under the microscope. I don't think anybody's concerned about offensive recruiting. It's a matter of, can USC show enough to make those skeptics out there get off the fence? And then I guess the other thing is USC going to reevaluate their whole NIL program with high school recruiting? I don't think they are, but then again, I don't want to hear any more prospects out there saying, yeah, we were just waiting for the so-and-so team to get the move to join the Big Ten. You're starting to see some stuff going on in the recruiting world that USC might have to readjust.
All right, Eric.
Yeah, I think the recruiting will mimic how well USC plays. I mean, I think that's kind of the wait now. A lot of these defensive prospects wanted to see that. Mark's right. There's a couple big time targets for USC that are scheduled to announce soon, and they'll get a chance to I guess see a little bit of the season first, but I don't know how much it'll play for those 2 specifically. But there's some big names locally that are committed to other schools that I think a lot can. I mean, this is a decade between now and when they officially sign in December. Like there is so much that can change between now and then. There's so much that can change in the last 48 hours before guys sign. The idea that like what USC's class looks like now and the players that USC is in on now, that's it. There's no change. That is not true. USC is going to stay involved with the guys that they want to be involved with. There's guys that are going to put together really good seasons this fall that jump up and and USC wants. I mean, what we know about these coaches just based on these 2023 true freshmen is that they're probably going to hit on guys where they like the film and they can see, yeah, there's something there. That guy is going to develop and keep getting better. That's something that I don't think USC was good at, and a reason that the seasons went the way they did some of those years. I think there were classes that were pretty reliant on guys that were really good as sophomores, became big names, and then they became the must-get guys in that class over a guy who got better and better and better and better and maybe didn't hit that 4-star, 5-star kind of thing. But those are the guys that you really want to add. And so when a new name pops up during the year, a lot of people who follow recruiting, well, who's that guy? I don't know that guy. Now we're swinging at our plan B, plan C's, and those can turn into plan A's based on kind of how well they do that senior season, because you want those guys that are ascending. You want those guys that are going to get better and better and have not maxed out as high school sophomores or juniors. And a lot of the big programs are good at that, at identifying those players. And that's what USC, I think, has shown a real strength at doing. So yeah, recruiting is fluid, right? That's going to be my answer. Whatever it looks like right now is not going to be what it looks like when it comes time for guys to actually sign.
Chris?
Yeah, those guys had it right, but I'm going to pick up on something that Mark had talked about, and that was NIL and high school players. Lincoln Riley's not going to change his opinion on this, but you know what? We actually don't need him to. If you're an extraordinarily wealthy USC alum and you're watching this show, and that's probably not happening, this show is no way to get ahead in life. We can't even afford to get Greg good Wi-Fi.
But try to find an internet mogul, right? That's
yeah.
What we need first.
We need a new sponsor. We need somebody who does internet stuff. Look, you don't have to have Lincoln Riley do anything for you. If you want to know which recruit you should offer money to, send me an email. I will tell you, and then you can sign them to a deal. You don't even have to talk to Lincoln Riley about it. USC fans, you can take this into your own hands and you can solve the high school NIL issue. Just go offer somebody a contract. It can be like a 1-paragraph contract with a $275,000 check attached, and we're good. So if you want to do that, and if there are USC fans that are just itching to give hundreds of thousands of dollars to 17-year-old kids, let me know and I will point you in the right direction.
I think that it's all wait and see. Nothing is official until the signing date in December. I think they're at SC could find, if the season really goes well, some guys flipping back to SC. Hopefully on the defensive end of it. I think it's kind of stuck now, and I think we'll have to wait what happens as SC season unfolds. That may sway some minds right there. We learned recently that Bellflower St. John Bosco safety Peyton Woodyard has decommitted from Georgia and has flipped to Alabama. He joins Mater Dei and former Trojan recruit Xavier Brown in Tuscaloosa. Is it time to move on from Woodyard and Brown and just focus on other recruits, or just take a silent TO on this? How do you feel about that, Mark?
No, I think you probably just stay in the background and you continue to pursue these young men, which I have no doubt that the staff is still doing. Look, Marcellus Williams, I think he said it best. He was born in 2005. He doesn't have a lot of fond memories of USC to fall back on. So he's not the only player who's in that boat. Again, I talked about it with the last question. Chris has touched on it. Eric's touched on it. Just go out there and show these young men that, yeah, you can come to USC and you can get developed and make it to the NFL. That's basically what the holdup is with these young men. They just want to see it. So show it. We know that USC has a staff that knows how to recruit. We're now at the point, again, they just need to see a difference.
Eric?
There's not a whole lot to add there.
Yeah, you stay in touch with the guys you want, right? If the staff really wants those guys, you keep pinging them and you stay involved. Hey, you want to come to a game? You want to take a visit? You want to do any of that kind of stuff? And you see how it goes. You see what their interest level is like. Because if USC is really good, I mean really good defensively, it's gonna catch attention, right? I mean that's all there is to it. Is if USC plays well defensively this year, defensive players are going to say, okay, they're actually playing defense. All they've seen and all they've heard for their entire football playing careers is that USC doesn't play defense, and it's not the best way to showcase yourself and to get to the NFL. That's it. That's all they've heard. That's all they know. You can't blame them for not thinking like, well, this other guy, random USC fan, wants me to go to USC, so I should do that. They've been trained forever. USC is not the best way to make a statement if you're a defensive player. So it's up to USC to change that, and it's always been up to USC to change that.
Chris, do you agree?
Yes, and I think it's a little bit too early to move on Woodyard. I want to wait until he flips his commitment to LSU and then try to flip him to USC after that. I think fourth time's a charm with him. That's all I'm going to say, Greg. You can
No,
talk.
you've stunned him.
He's frozen. Well, guys, do you think by the time we get to the
Apologize for the obvious technical.
Oh.
How come when Chris starts talking, I think this goes back to his thing with Oregon. He has become such a target in Eugene that I think some tech nuts up there are trying to sabotage our program because of Chris. And we
you
really
think there's an Oregon football fan out there that's smart enough that they can actually attack this program? You see what they write in the comments. Half the words are misspelled. Those guys aren't evil geniuses. Don't worry about it, Greg.
All right. Again, we're moving through this as best we can given the situation. Now, a tradition we've always had here at WeAreSC, with tongue in cheek, I might add, is like the games at the Coliseum between the third and fourth quarter, the Coliseum torch gets lit. So I'm bringing back the Coliseum torch of WeAreSC, and we're going to light this baby up.
I bet everybody missed this. I bet.
Well, this is the highlight. But what I am going to do,
The lighter is working fantastically, by the way. We should put some of our lighter money into Wi-Fi money.
well, that's good. But I want to also bring in this guy, little Caleb, who was a giveaway bobblehead at the Dodger game. Chris, you have yours, right?
Yeah, I have two of them, Greg. I stole one from the kid sitting next to me.
Well, no one's shocked at that because that's just a reflection of your behavior. But this was a kind of a cute item. And we'll be lighting the torch. Perhaps we'll be dedicating it to today. I think I'm going to dedicate this to the Oregon. So with that, let's move on to the fourth quarter. Thank you very much. Panel, would you like
So Chris and Eric,
into
if you had a
the
choice,
big-
you invite Notre Dame into the Big Ten, or would you leave them independent?
I appreciate that question, Mark. It's a good one. Can I start by saying that I think this show has been Greg's best performance ever? I mean, we've been doing this for probably a year and a half. I have never heard him as eloquent.
The suspense is phenomenal, right? Like when is it going? It's great.
There's so much wait and see this year. We're waiting and seeing on the USC defense. We're waiting and seeing whether Greg will be able to talk or whether he'll be frozen. And there he is. He's moving again. Would I like to see Notre Dame invited? I think Notre Dame has already been invited to the Big Ten. They get invited every time they meet somebody from a Big Ten conference school. Would I like to see them join? I would. I think it would be good for the conference and good for college football.
No, I agree. I don't think that rivalry would ever end between USC and Notre Dame, but this is a great way of protecting it because I think we all agree that conference realignment and the direction of college football, they're not even close to being done yet. So it's a matter of time of just getting the Power 5 schools into that 60-team pool, and whether you divide it up by conference or whatever, that needs to be one of USC's protected games. Obviously, UCLA is going to be the other one. Notre Dame has to be number 2.
I honestly, I feel like you rushed through they're always going to be a rival and they're always going to play. I mean, you talk about conference realignment. If it ends up where USC and Notre Dame are in completely different conferences and there's something that comes down where, I mean, if you're going to sort of an NFL model and that kind of scheduling, what happens to non-conference scheduling? I mean, do you get to a point with realignment where no, you only play Big Ten teams, you only play SEC teams? I just don't know if you can firmly say that you're going to be able to keep these rivalries all the way through, because we've seen a ton of long standing big rivalries get pushed aside by realignment. I don't think there's any guarantee if Notre Dame does join a conference and it is not the Big Ten or whatever they're called when the merry-go-round stops. I just don't know if there's going to be a guarantee out there that, oh yeah, you can play this team that's in this other conference or that's stretched all the way over here every year. I think that I think there's questions about that. I mean, I think there's questions about how all of this looks at the end of it. But again, the thing that gets thrown out the most often is that NFL model. And there, outside of your division, there's no protected rivalry game or anything like that when it comes to that.
Well, that's where I guess where I'm coming from. If you want to keep college football
right
separate from the NFL, you have to have those protected rivalries. That's kind of what makes the NFL special. You talk about the divisions, Cowboys, Redskins, Cowboys, Eagles, they're going to play 2 times every year. And that's a marquee game. Same thing with the Raiders, Chargers. Those types of things have to stay in play at the college level to maintain that line in the sand.
Which is why ultimately, yes, right, would love to see Notre Dame in whatever alignment or division or whatever USC is in to keep those together.
I mean, Oklahoma, Nebraska went away. That was a top 3 rivalry and it just disappeared. I mean, Nebraska kind of also disappeared about the same time, but still, Texas A&M, which they're going to start up again now, but that went away for a while. That was a top 10 rivalry. I mean, these were big games.
I think that Notre Dame, I would like to see him there, but I think the Big Ten does protect these rivalry games that you can kind of say every year we're going to play this team. SC is currently with UCLA for next 2 years. I think obviously that's going to continue. They can do that with Notre Dame without a problem. Panel, what do you see Cal, Stanford and or Cal? Do you see them being invited into the Big Ten? And should Oregon State and Washington State join the Big 12 or the Mountain West Conference, Chris?
I would like to see Stanford in the Big Ten. Cal, I'm a little torn on. I don't have a problem with them being there, but Cal just doesn't put forth an effort. I mean, can you please put forth an effort, Cal? They don't try. They're just content to be garbage consistently, and I don't get that. Ultimately, I would rather see them there than see them join the ACC or something, which is ridiculous. But at the same time, I don't know that either one of those programs adds much in terms of revenue, so I'm not sure they're going to get an invite. Maybe they could on an Oregon plan where you get them off the discount shelf. Oregon State and Wazoo, they should go to the Big 12 if they can. I'm not sure they're welcome. I mean, the Big 12 gets $31 million a year. The Mountain West gets $5 million. I don't think that's a difficult choice. If you get a shot at the Big 12, you go. I'm not sure they're going to. I don't think they bring enough to the table. I think they water down the television money, and everybody gets a little bit less. So I think they're probably going to be left out, but I hope not, because I would like more for their fans. Oregon State and Wazoo have absolutely nothing going for them in terms of tradition and location and recruiting grounds. But actually, both of those programs have managed over the last 20 years to field quite a few competitive teams, despite their significant disadvantages. So I would like to see something work out for them.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add to what Chris said. Look, I think
Mark?
I believe Washington State and Oregon State belong in the Big 12. They're probably going to end up having to settle for the Mountain West, which I think sucks. But until this whole groundswell and everything, that's shifting around kind of settles down, they don't have a lot of options. But I'll tell you what, I would love to see Oregon State and Oklahoma State play. I mean, two OSUs going at each other, two teams that wear orange and black. Those types of games are what makes college football fun. Arizona and Cal and Stanford, yes, they belong with USC and UCLA in the Big Ten. This is how you're going to maintain the difference between college football and that NFL model. You have to keep those types of rivalries alive somehow. Otherwise, yeah, college football in 10 years will look exactly like the NFL. There's not going to.
Greg hated your answer, Mark. He didn't even stick around to listen to it. He just left.
He's coming back for me now.
Yeah, he's excited about yours. Hey, Greg, hurry up, jump in here. Eric's about to talk.
So
It
yeah,
is so talking Stanford Cal, it is wild to me, just the history of the NCAA and college athletics and the student athlete and all of that. It is wild to me that Stanford and Cal, two of the best academic institutions in the world, and two programs that dominate a lot of Olympic sports and put out athletes all over the place in all kinds of different sports, and that are huge pluses, right, to any sort of conference that they would be in from that, are not like actively being sought out to be put in a conference and could wind up sort of nowhere. I do think that they end up somewhere when all of this stuff gets finished. But again, that football revenue is driving so much of this and could push those two schools and just full athletic programs out of this. It's such a wild proposition to me if you had said this, a decade ago or whenever. Chris is right about Oregon State and Washington State. Yeah, get to line up all the conferences with how much money you can get in each conference and just top down ringing doorbells, right? Can we come in? Can we come in? Can we come in? I think that they'd be a fit in the Big 12. That the Big 12 for now is going to survive over the Pac-12, even without USC and UCLA, to me, is still kind of a rough pill to swallow, because the Big 12 or the Pac-12, even without USC and UCLA, if Oregon's there, if Washington's there, Oregon State, Washington State, if Utah's there, the Arizona schools, Stanford, Cal, that is a better football conference, just in terms of top to bottom teams. Utah in there too, obviously, and Colorado now even. That's a better football conference than what the Big 12 was shaping up to be before it added these Pac-12 schools. It's better, and the Pac-12's failure to see that, take advantage of it, and keep the conference going is just, one of the all-time screw-ups, I think, when it comes to college sports and conferences. That's something that I don't think anybody should get over all that quickly, even though you have to, or you're left behind, because tomorrow we might have different conferences. That's how quickly this stuff seems to be happening.
Well, I would like to see Stanford and Cal. Cal really annoys me because they've got a beautiful campus, a setting for college football. If you've been to the stadium, it's a great place to watch a game. The SEC kind of gets panned a little bit with their motto of it just means more. Cal is kind of like, it just means less. And I think Chris made a good point. Look, if you're not going to take it seriously, then you shouldn't be playing at this level because it's just an embarrassment. I feel bad for Oregon State and Washington State. If it would be better for their programs to be in the Mountain West Conference, to make both their program and the Mountain West better, so there is some sort of identity of a conference on the western part of the United States, I'd be all for that. But I think when it's all said and done, which kind of leads us into the final question that we can just briefly hit on, I think.
Guys, do you think
you should go off script, just whatever you want to talk about, Chris?
Well, I'm probably going to do that anyway. I'll go ahead and paraphrase his question though. Do you think with the 4 remaining teams that are in the Pac-12 that somehow George Kliavkoff can save the Pac-12 in some shape or form? Chris, let's start with you. The answer is
great idea.
The answer is absolutely not. It's impossible. I like the future of the Ottoman Empire more than I like the future of the Pac-12. It's done. It's over. The only people who are there are people that can't get out because no one else is ready to take them yet. It's just a terrible, terrible disaster of a situation.
Yeah, there's no bringing this back. You know, when you're on life support, you get to a point where somebody has to make the decision. And when there's no future and the conference has been brain dead for a long time to begin with, it might be time just to say, you know what, last one out, turn out the lights, lock the door behind you. Who's going to be the last team out? This conference is dead. And it's a shame. You know, Eric, you touched on it. Cal and Stanford have produced how many Olympians? And now all of a sudden you're losing that. That's a dynamic that doesn't get talked about enough. I mean, we're still going to be able to put out Olympic athletes, but you know, it's the Pac-12 really had a foothold there that, you know what, you want to be one of the top swimmers in the country, you go to the Pac-12. You want to play water polo, you go to the Pac-12. Baseball, you go to the Pac-12. You're losing that dynamic. And that's the downfall of college, you know, losing its way right now, the direction it's going.
Yeah, bring out the meatloaf, right? It's over.
That's right.
I think that's
a fork in it. Put a
that's a
fork in it.
saying.
The celebratory loaf. Yeah.
I think we need to
that's a saying, right? I think we're good.
that we should light the meatloaf on fire between the third and fourth quarter. I think do a filet job with a barbecue. I think that would be a good idea. All right, so guys, this is the huddle I think we've ever had, to say the least.
Greg on the
But
bench.
we are going to get through it. All right, we're in overtime.
Off the stage.
There you go. Get the cane, get the hook. All right, overtime. Just a few questions here from people that have written in on through our message board, the premium members message board. It says, Greg, early question for next week's Trojans Huddle. What is going on at the quarterback spot? Is Caleb just looking like Caleb at this point? Is Miller still the number 2 guy, or is Malachi pushing him a bit? Is Kingsbury adding something to the quarterback room? This was directed at me, so guys, feel free to jump in here. I think Caleb looks like Caleb. I think Miller is the number 2 guy, but according to the head coach, Malachi is pushing him a little bit and has looked much better since the spring. I think he said 50% better. And is Kingsbury adding something into the quarterback room? I can honestly say I'm not sure what he's adding, but I'm sure it's something. Anybody got any other insight on this question?
I think Caleb is still good. And I don't know whether Kingsbury is adding more to the quarterback room than you have added to this program today, but I would say yes.
And I can't argue with you on that one. That's for sure.
Caleb goes to him with a question and Cliff just freezes and stares until he walks out of the room. Yeah, this guy has coached Heisman Trophy winners. He's coached in the NFL. He can answer the questions and be kind of a sounding board. And that's sort of what we've heard about Cliff, is that Lincoln Riley is not available all the time to all the players kind of whenever they want. He does a good job of being open and the players can go to him. But this is another guy with a ton of experience who comes from a similar background and has the same sort of understanding of offensive football and what it takes to succeed at every level that these guys want to get to. So that is, anytime you can add voices like that to your offense, to your program, to your quarterback room, that's big. I don't think Miller is, I mean, he's got to play like it, right, all through the season, but it would surprise me if there was a shift at number 2 in that quarterback pecking order this year. I think Miller is going to be the guy this year. Malachi, just watching him throw in warmups and practice, what we can see, Lincoln's right. He looks completely different than the guy that we saw during the spring game, and that's a good thing for the team and for him as he goes forward. And then Caleb's gonna be Caleb. I mean, that's what we've seen from him. The idea that he could get even a little bit better from last year, I think, is maybe terrifying for everyone on the schedule.
All right, questions 2 or 3, we've kind of gone over it, so I just want to give the people their props for writing in. But question 2 from Trojan from the Valley. You want to know how many touchdowns will Miller Moss and Malachi Nelson throw? We kind of touched on that earlier. I think that Miller Moss, because of the nature of the schedule, will probably get about 8 touchdown passes. I think Malachi Nelson might get 1 touchdown pass at best this season. Does anybody else want to pass on a thought on this?
I'm not convinced that Miller Moss is going to get all of the garbage time reps. I think that Lincoln Riley expects he's going to have a real competition on his hands next year between those two. And that means you need to get Malachi Nelson on the field also. He needs to get some live reps.
All right, man, we'll finish it out with this because I think it's almost a rhetorical question from Trojan Forever in Philadelphia. What is your best guess on what happens to Stanford and Cal? I think we kind of went over that. My hope is that they go to the Big Ten. It'd be nice to keep the West Coast somewhat together at some level. Any other comments on that? You're all good? All right. Well, we made it through apparently in some sort of good shape, bad shape. Again, a reminder, if you have a question or comments for our panel, go to the WeAreSC members message boards, click on the thread that pertains to Inside the Trojans Huddle. And a reminder, if you enjoyed, I don't know if you could have enjoyed this podcast with all the
I did. I thought it was fantastic.
Well, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. You know what? I'm going to take that at face value. I think you're right. I think it is the best broadcast we've done since this inception.
Yeah.
But if you did like what you heard or what you could make out, please click on the like and red subscriber buttons. We had 6.1 thousand people last week. We can almost guarantee this technical difficulty won't happen again, hopefully. We greatly appreciate your support, and be sure to check out wearesc.com. Become a subscriber. That'll do it for Tuesday's edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle. Again, till next Tuesday when it all begins. A big thank you again to our panelists, Marc Kulkin, Erik McKinney, Chris Arledge. Great job, guys. And a special big thank you to all of you for watching, listening, or just being able to handle the technical issues of Inside the Trojans Huddle. Have yourself a great week. So until next Tuesday.
Bye on.
It came so close.
Wouldn't end it any other way.